Hello guys, welcome back to another Android Studio tutorial. In the last video we already learned about how to create contract class and database schema for SQLite database. So in this video here I am going to demonstrate how to put information into a table available in SQLite database. So for put information into a table, the first step you have to create a user-defined method inside SQLite open helper class. So here we have a subclass. So the first step we have to create a user-defined method for add information into table. So here I am going to create a method for put information into table. Here I name the method as add contact. For this method we need some parameters. First one is an integer, that is contact ID. Second one is name. Third one is email. And one more parameter is needed, that is an object of SQLite database. I name it as database. So for add information into a table, first thing we have to create an object of content values. So here I am going to create an object of content values. Now we need to add information in the form of name value pairs into the content values object. So now here I am going to add each information. So you can call this method put. First parameter is the key. So we can get the key from the contract class. First is contact ID and the parameter is ID. Now add the second data, content values. Specify the key for it. It is name. Now pass the data. Now here the third data. It is email. Pass email. Okay, now we successfully add all the information into the content value subject. Now we can add this information into the table. So use the SQLite database object and call the method insert. The first parameter is the table name. So we can get the table name from the contract class. Second parameter is null column hack. Now you can simply pass null for it. And final parameter is the content value itself. So pass content values. So this statement add one row to the table. So now we can display some message on the logcat from here. Database operations. Here the message is one row is inserted. One row inserted. So now we have a method for add information into the table inside SQLite open helper class. So now we can perform the data insertion. So now here I am going to use fragments for each database operations. So from this video you can revise the previous fragment topics also. So first here I am going to add a home fragment. So right click the application name and select fragment, create a blank fragment, specify fragment name. I name it as home fragment. No need of this factory method, no need of the interface callbacks, and click finish. So here the fragment is created. So now here I am going to add some user interfaces for this fragment. So here I add some buttons into the home fragment layout file. Button for add a new contact, button for view contacts, update and delete. So here this one is the button for add new contact with ID bn add contact. This one with ID bn view contact, bn update, and final one is bn delete contact. So this is the layout for the home fragment. So from this fragment, user can perform different database operations. So now we need to add this fragment into the main activity. So now we can simply close this fragment. Now we need to open the layout file of main activity. So here I open the layout file of main activity. Here is a text view is available. Remove that one. Now go to design, open blueprint. Yeah, it's already in blueprint. So now here I'm going to put a container for the fragment. So open layouts, select a frame layout. Now specify the constraints. Also we need a constraint at the bottom. Okay, so this is the container for fragment inside main activity. So select that container. Here specify ID for it. Here I name it as fragment container. Okay, now close this file. Now open main activity. Now from the onCreate method, here I am going to add the home fragment to the main activity. So first check the condition if find view by id dot id dot fragment container not equal to null. So now we need to check whether the activity is resumed from state. So for that, check the condition if saved instance state not equal to null. In that case, nothing to do, just return. So now we can add the home fragment to the main activity. So first create an object of home fragment. Now here I am going to add the home fragment to the main activity. So get support fragment manager, begin transaction, add, specify the container. Here it is fragment container. Now specify the fragment object. Here it is home fragment. Now we can commit the transaction. So this will add the fragment to the main activity. So before going to proceed, we can check it out. So here I'm going to test it. Okay, now here the virtual device is ready. Now we can test it. So run the application, select that virtual device. Okay, now the application available on this virtual device. So inside main activity, we load the home fragment. So now for add information into a table, we have to create another fragment. So here I'm going to add another fragment, create a blank fragment, specify the fragment class name, add contact fragment. So here we need to add the user interface for adding a new contact. So here I add the user interface for add a new contact. So here we have three edit text, ID, name and email. So here is the first edit text with ID txt contact ID. Here is the second one with ID txt contact name, txt contact email, and here is the button with ID bn save. Okay, so this is the fragment for add a new contact. So now when user click the add a new contact button inside home fragment, we need to load the second fragment. So for that, just open home fragment. So here we have to create variables for buttons. Bn save, bn view contact, bn delete, and bn update. Okay, so here we have to get the view object, and finally we can return that view object from here. Now we can initialize these variables. So here I'm going to initialize the button bn save using the view object. Bn add contact. Okay, now we need to specify click listener for the button. So here this fragment implements on click listener. You need to implement the method on click. So now we need to register the click listener for the button. So bn save dot set on click listener into this. Okay, so from here we can handle the button click. So now this fragment need to communicate with the activity. For that, here we need to create an interface. So here I'm going to create an interface, public interface on db operation listener. So in that interface we have one method, public void db operation performed. That is the method name, and this method needs one parameter. It is an integer. I name it as method. Okay, now open main activity. So here main activity implements that interface on db operation listener, implement the method. Now go back to home fragment. Here override one of lifecycle method on attach. Create an object of activity. Typecast this one into activity. Okay, so now create an instance of the interface here. On db listener, I name it as db operation listener. So now we can initialize that instance from the onAttach method. db operation listener equal to activity. Now typecast this one into on db operation listener. Put this statement in a try catch. So by using this try catch we can ensure that the activity implement this interface. So now specify the catch. Here the exception is class cast exception. So from here we can throw a new exception through class cast exception. So the activity dot toString must implement that method, must implement the interface method. Okay, that's enough. So now this fragment can communicate with the activity using this instance. So now from the onClick method we need to find out which button is actually clicked by the user. So for that, here I'm going to use a switch case statement. So inside switch, get the ID of the view item, get ID. Now here we can check it out. First case, if it is r.id bn add contact. In that case, we can call the method inside activity. So we can use the instance of the interface. So db operation performed. So here I pass an integer. and break. Okay, so now go to main activity. So we got that integer in this method. So here also we need to check which button is clicked by the user. So here also we can start with a switch case statement. Method, and check the first condition. If it is 0, in that case we need to load the add contact fragment. So get support fragment manager, begin transaction. So here we can replace the fragment r.id. Fragment container. Now specify the fragment object, new add contact fragment. Now add it into the backstack, and finally commit the transaction. Okay, and break. Okay, before going to proceed further, we can check the application. So now run the application. Okay, now the application available on this virtual device. If I click the add contact button, it will open the another fragment. So from this fragment, user can add new information into the table. Okay, now we can perform the data insertion. So open the add contact fragment. Here create some variables, b and save. Now create some variables for edit text, ID, name, and email. Okay, now we can initialize these variables. For that, here we need the view object, and finally from this method we can simply return that view object. So now we can initialize the view components. So first one is the button b and save, find the view by id r.id. I think b and save here. Now we can initialize the edit text, id, find the view by id r.id. It is text contact id. Okay, now name, view.find view by id r.id, txt contact name. Now email, view.find view by id. Here it is txt contact email. Okay, so here we initialize all the variables. So now we need to create a click listener for the button. So here our button is b and save. So b and save dot set on click listener. Okay, so from this method we can put information into the database. So for add information into the database, first thing we have to create an object of the SQLite open helper class. So here we have this subclass called contact DB helper. So the first thing we have to create an object of contact DB helper. So before going to do that, first thing we need to get the data. So id don't get the text dot to string. Now get the name, name dot get the text dot to string. Now get the email, email dot get the text and convert that one into string. Okay, so now here we have all the data. Now we can put this information into the table. So first thing we have to create an object of SQLite open helper class. So here we have a subclass called contact DB helper. contact DB helper. The constructor of that class need a contact, so we can pass get activity. Okay, so now we need to create an object of SQLite database. I name it as a database. So contact DB helper dot. So here we need to perform the write operation. So we can call this method get writable database. So here one important thing you must notice. So here this application is just for a training purpose. But in the case of a real application, that means if you want to publish your application in Play Store, do not put the database write or read operation on the main thread, because the database operations may be a long running one. If you put the database operation on the main thread, that will cause your application to pause, and if your application pause for 10 to 15 seconds, the Android operating system will issue an application not responding dialog, and the user will close your application. So that will affect the user interface, user experience of your application. So don't try to put the database operations on the main thread. So you have to perform the database operations on a background thread. But here I put the database operation on the main thread. This is just for training purpose. You have to use a separate background thread such as an async task. I will show you it in another episode. So now we can put the data into the table. So contact DB helper dot. So we can call that method add contact. First one is ID. So here ID is an integer. So here our data is string. So we need to convert that one into int. So integer dot pass int and pass the ID. Now second parameter is name. Third parameter is email. And final parameter is an object of SQLite database. Okay. So after performing the database operation, we can close the database connection. So contact DB helper dot, call the method close. After adding information to the table, we can reset the form. So id dot set to text, name dot set to text into null, and final email, and display a message to the user get activity contact saved successfully. And finally display the toast. Okay, so now we finished the coding for add information into table. Now we can test it. Okay, now we can run the application. Select the virtual device. Now here the application available on this virtual device. Click the button add contact. Specify a contact ID. Now specify a name. Now specify email. Okay, so before going to click the save button, open Logcat, clear Logcat. Now here I just clear the Logcat window. Now click the save button. So here it shows contact saved successfully. So here is the Logcat information. Database is created, table is created, and it shows one row is inserted successfully. So now open the DB helper class. So here we add some Logcat information into the constructor of that class. So here it is. So here the database is created, it already show. So this statement no longer needed. Now try to add another contact. specify the email address. So here I just clear the locate now. Now click the save button. So here the information is one row is successfully inserted. So this is how we add information into a table available on SQLite database. For getting more Android video updates, please subscribe this channel now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.